The wheels on those.
On one on the right.
All of them. But there's space. Oh, yes, because.
Well, there's one that's filled with chairs.
Right, that one.
Jesse, where were you that you got sunburned?
I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
Well, they used
Out
to
of
be
the water.
Right, but I thought we could put the.
Good morning.
Morning.
I think we'll get started on time-ish this morning. I know people will be showing up at 5 after.
Wake up.
Yeah. Well, and I figure people will show up at 5 after expecting that that's the normal start time anyways. But I'm here. I was here early this morning, so we'll get
Say all good Lutherans sit down.
Yeah.
No, you're good. We're gonna put him in that chair. Yeah, we'll let him sit there.
Because I have to say it afterwards.
So I don't know where you want to start first. Whoever started.
Delivery search.
But those wheels would be great to get those.
But then you're having to live through that.
The Lord be with you.
And also,
Before you ask me where I got sun, I was sailing yesterday.
nice.
My neighbor has a Catalina 22. Does that make any sense? It's a 1970 something Catalina 22, so most of the parts still work. It floats, but that's the important part. Well, anyways,
Is
we
it
had,
one piece?
it is in one piece, yeah. We had a boys' day out in the water scheduled yesterday.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, and I forgot my hat.
Oh,
I wore plenty of sunscreen, but if you're out in the sun for 6 hours, it
Yeah,
doesn't
you
matter.
gotta be afraid.
Yeah, and well, what happened is he's got his boat, Marina Dock or whatever, Thunder or something, marina out there in Hayden Island. And so we went from Hayden Island to Government Island and then back.
Oh.
But we lost our wind on the way out to Government Island, so it took us 5 hours to get there. We got to the 205 bridge and we brought the sails down and turned the motor on. It's really funny though because my friend Matt, has seemingly no sense of time because we started at about 1 and we got there around 6 and he's like, oh, that took us a while. It took us 3 hours. It's like, got a couple. But on plus side, once the sun goes down, the warm water, you got the cool air, it creates a nice wind. So we made it back in just a little over an hour. But I got tons of sun yesterday. There's a magic product that you cannot buy in the U.S. You can get it in France called Biafine. Has anybody ever heard of this before? If you ever get a chance, smuggle some back from France. It is the best sunburn or just post sun cream you ever get. I don't know what's in it. Unicorn tears or something. But
You have about 20 years, but you'll pay for this.
oh, I know. Yeah. Well, and I endeavored to buy one of those nice wide brim hats with next
Yeah,
to
yeah. And you,
I intended to bring a hat. I just forgot it amongst the other things that I was supposed to be bringing. So
that happens with age.
yeah. But I did bring sunscreen, and I did really well. I missed one spot on my elbow here, and then this spot right here. So actually, this isn't too bad. My heart is where it got hurt.
That's good.
But the other 2 guys with me did put sunscreen on until about 3 hours into the trip, and their legs. And I know from experience, if I'm sitting down, I always, that's the first spot I put sunscreen, is the top of my legs, because I had burned the heck out of those so much. No thank you.
If your part never widens, it really.
Paul, you have had to adapt, I'm sure.
I don't know if it's adaptations, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. This is, and I always push up against gender stereotypes, but holy cow, men are Matt said, my wife tells me I should wear sunscreen. And he's like, I don't do it because I should. I do it because I don't want her to yell at me. I'm like, oh boy.
It doesn't matter why.
Okay, was anybody watching the live stream of the churchwide assembly this week? Me? I was enwrapped watching the churchwide. It was a big deal this year because it has been 6 years and Bishop Elizabeth Eaton decided she wasn't going to run this year, so we elected a new presiding bishop of the ELCA, it's a big deal for several reasons. First, so the new presiding bishop, has anybody read the news or heard of this at all?
Oh, I haven't.
came my thing. So we elected a guy named Yehiel Curry. Yehiel is neat, and this is, you know, of course I nerd out over his name more than anything else. Yehiel is Hebrew, right? So we should recognize this part. El means God, and Yehi is, in the beginning God created the heavens, etc., etc. Yehiya is let there be. So the way when he gave his speech, he talked about Yehiel as translated as God lives or God is. But there's a really interesting context. And in fact, so the way the bishop selection works is the same way that a bishop selection works for a synod. So the presiding bishop is elected almost the exact same way as a bishop of Oregon or Washington or whatever. Wherein the first ballot, especially if the existing bishop is not rerunning, is completely writing. So they had 4 pages of candidates, because there's like 900 delegates there, and so, you know, you can imagine who shows up. Yehiel Curry was elected after 5 ballots, and it was really fascinating to watch, because somebody was posting the ballot results onto the ELCA subreddit, which there is. And the first ballot, he was not even in the top 3. He was down like 5 or something like that. And of course, the first ballot, you can imagine 900 people, like 115 votes for first place, 110 for second, etc., 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 etc. And the way the ballots work, and I explained this after we elected Bishop Lori Alexis Caesar again, but 75% is the threshold for an election in the first ballot. So if you get 75% of the votes, one ballot. And then, I think it's 75 again, but then it drops by 5% increments every ballot successive after that. But each ballot, a certain number of names are removed. So after the first ballot, I don't think there's any mandatory removal, but you get the opportunity to say, I don't want my name on the ballot. After the second ballot, they cut it down to like 10 or something like that, and then 7, and then 5, and then 3, and then 2, I think, for the last ballot. So by the time they got to the 5th ballot, when Bishop Curry was elected, Bishop-elect Curry, sorry, I think it was down to 5, if I remember correctly, whatever. But it's fascinating because first ballot, he was down in like the 80s. Second ballot, he was number 3, I think. Third ballot, he had 300 odd votes. And the other 2 candidates stayed at the number they were at. So something happened. What happened was they got to give their speech. So it's really interesting because since it's a church-wide assembly, there are some delegates, some candidates who aren't at church-wide. Some bishops or some candidates for the presiding bishop that are literally not there. So to make it equal, what they did is each of them had to zoom in, even though Bishop Curry was at Synod Assembly. So they had him over in a different room at the venue, recording the speech, and all the candidates did the same thing. It was really interesting to watch. And they even had technical difficulties during his speech, so each candidate had, I think, 2 minutes for their first stump speech. It wasn't not a lot of time. 3 minutes, maybe 4. Right at 4. He gets like a half a minute into his thing, and all of a sudden somebody else is talking over the video. They had, of course, technical issues with the Zoom. So he all of a sudden just kind of winds down because he realizes somebody else is carrying on a conversation over his audio feed. And the whole assembly is watching this happen, and everybody starts laughing. And then he has to restart his speech from the beginning, which was potentially awkward, but he did a great job with it. He's a funny guy. That's part of it. He's got charisma to him. But anyways, you can find all this stuff on YouTube if you care to dig for it. It's on the ELCA YouTube channel, which there is an ELCA YouTube channel. In a moment, I'm going to show you the video that the ELCA put out, kind of like summarizing his lecture, just so you can get a sense of who he is. But I just say it's very exciting. Number one, because he is an African American. So this is significant because we, who have been consistently known as the whitest denomination in the U.S., just elected a black man to be our presiding bishop. Pretty cool. Okay. The other big thing is he came in through the teen ministry program. So if you're not familiar with teen, I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but TEEM, not TEA. And it was a program that was developed to encourage people already in careers to pursue a degree in ministry. So over and against in-person opportunities, and just the rhythm of how the education program operates. Also, his first congregation was a synodically authorized worship community, which we call SAWC, S-A-W-C. So this is a guy who first and foremost did mission work before he became a bishop. So this might seem like just information to you. It's going to heavily influence the direction of our denomination if he has anything to do with it. And in his stump speech, he listed basically two big things that he was about. One was increasing the diversity of our denomination. And he talked about how, because he is currently Bishop of the Chicago Synod, the Urban Chicago Synod, which is coincidental. He doesn't have to move. good deal for him. Yeah.
Is he still renting or does he own it?
That's an interesting question. Well, he lives in the South Side, so maybe he can afford it. But increasing diversity, the staff at Chicago Urban Synod is extremely diverse. And then he had another thing too. I already forgot it. Diversity and I don't know, something. You can watch it.
Equity and some kind of inclusion, I hope.
He actually used those words at some point, yes. He actually used those words as a bit of a jibe. Anyways, so it's a big deal because we've got a black man as our bishop-elect, our presiding bishop-elect, which is pretty awesome. But also just, this is a completely different sort of pastor now that we've got in the bishop's role. This isn't somebody that came pipeline through, got their undergrad, went straight to seminary, did 4 years in seminary, did first call, etc. This is somebody who, he was a teacher, he was a social worker, he had all these careers before he found his way to church. And he tells the story, well, he might talk here, I don't want to spoil it. They went to a Lutheran church. He didn't grow up as a Lutheran. This is the other big thing. He didn't grow up as a Lutheran. He and his wife, and they have 3 daughters now, and his first daughter went to a Lutheran church, and I can't remember the name of it, it's like St. Andrews or St. something, in Southside Chicago. The first time the Lutheran said to him, and he walked in and he said, I'm home. And he's like, how do I tell my wife this? His wife had already gone and signed him up for membership. All right, let me play the video.
Just
Yeah,
a bit of context.
please.
In the 70s, when I was in seminary, I would say over half of the seminarians were sons of pastors.
Yeah,
A very different church.
PKs, man.
But I mean, a very
Yeah.
different church has evolved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say too, there are plenty of things that I am cautious about regarding how the seminary process is working now, primarily because there were so many things that I found valuable that I probably wouldn't have picked to do if given the choice, but later on realized I needed to do. And so I want to make sure that those things are still part of the seminary process. On the other hand, the fact that we can bring in such a diverse background of people into roster ministry is very important, because it's not just people that look like me, right? Or, have enough money to go to college, because that's a pre-requirement for participating. And then, or we're young enough and single enough to not have to worry about being moved for internship or first call or whatever.
Well, now the other thing, I think more than half of us came out of Lutheran colleges.
Yep.
As well. So,
Yeah. All right.
There were 799 ballots cast, 400 were needed to elect. The Reverend Gail Curry, 562. The Reverend Kevin Strickland, 237.
Oh, just two.
There is an election.
We had presiding bishops who were men, and we had the majority of our bishops and leaders at the time were men. And what we now have seen is, as our presiding bishop, Elizabeth Eaton, ends her work, the Conference of Bishops is majority women. I'm hopeful that if presence matter, that me being here does something for allowing others to consider someone who looks like me or from my community or speaks with an accent or mother tongue isn't English. So hopefully that's what that means.
Around 1997, I stumbled into St. Stephen's Lutheran Church on the south side of Chicago. It was a synodically authorized worshiping community, and they was worshiping on Saturdays. I was so excited, I went and told my wife, I said, there's this church on Saturday. She said, Saturday? I took her back, and while I was just enjoying the service, I didn't realize that my wife had grabbed our daughter, Shemaiah, and joined the church, that I would become to lead before I even did. I thought to myself, we found our place. And that's the purpose for each and every one of us, to find our place in community, in worship, and in this church.
I was a teacher when I first walked into a church that I didn't even realize was Lutheran. I was invited by a friend, and what drew me was the talk of this mentoring program. So part of my vision is really associated with those things we've lifted up as a church that we said we need to do, we're going to do, and find a way to bring more people to the table so that we might embody it instead of just being a written document.
I'm what a return on your investment looks like. Even if you don't realize it, every time we gave our benevolence to the church, I was just a guy sitting in the pew, had never really learned the language of discernment. I just knew I had this feeling. So when I was a teacher, I was still trying to figure out what this feeling was, and I didn't get it there. And then I became a social worker, and I didn't feel it there. I went business for myself. I didn't feel it there. It wasn't until I was in the church that I said, I could do this for the rest of my life.
I was working in poverty ministry in the outskirts of Chicago in a suburb called Riverdale, and so I was honored to have my name lifted up and ultimately elected to be bishop in 2019. 2024 was, by my peers, elected to be the chair of the Conference of Bishops, and here today, still hard to say, presiding bishop-elect.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like I said, the whole live stream is on the ELCA channel. How did I flip to that? If you want to check it out. The videos are live stream quality, meaning that there are a couple of places where the live stream cuts out. Particularly, I got frustrated because during his acceptance speech, which is about 8 minutes long, the video cut out several times. So it's like, oh. But I think that they posted the recorded video onto the YouTube channel as well now too. It's worth looking at. So anyways, I thought that was very appropriate because it's a slice of what the life of our bureaucracy looks like. And pretty neat to know that, you know, somebody who is a vast minority in our denomination can become a leader. So, okay, so we've got 2 weeks left, including this today. And again, if you weren't here last week, I shifted my thinking. Rather than trying to walk through this 47-page document page by page, I'm just going to hit highlights of the 6 major sections. Last week we got through 1, which I felt was pretty good. And to recap, I'm going to scroll back up here. I forgot that this on the touch screen, but is it working? It's kind of working. There. This is the paragraph. Oh, I should zoom in for you. How did I do that?
Too far.
I don't want AI text. Thank you very much. No, I don't. I don't want to start your free trial. I just want to look at the stupid document.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. No, I don't want the magnifier. I just want to zoom in. Okay. Now can I scroll the screen over? Good Lord. I did it last week.
Dog
Oh, there we go. Use the fingers. There we go. How do I manage? Okay, there. I finally got a scroll bar. Okay. So the paragraph I want to draw attention to, because this is the one we focused on last week, is the second paragraph there. We teach that God is all powerful only, and that God is the source of all power. God's power alone brings forth and sustains the universe, redeems the sinner, and promises creation's ultimate fulfillment. So the idea that we picked around last week was this, one of the foundational ideas of this document, by the way, this document which is intended to talk about what it means to be Lutheran and citizen, Lutheran and civilian, Lutheran and United States participant, about these dual vocations that we have. One of the things we talk about is how, especially in Luther's understanding of vocation, all of our vocations are viewed through the lens of God's children, first and foremost. That is the overall arching lens. And so this is kind of viewing that in reverse insofar as that what this document is stating. When I say this document, what I mean is, this document which is based off of our theology, right? So it's based off the works of Luther and Kierkegaard and all these people that kind of like make up our modern doctrine, to use that word. But it's also a document that is written by human beings that are trying to make a document that represents what we believe. So, we teach that God is all powerful and that only God is the source of all power. So what we talked about last week was that if you find yourself in a position of power, that power is not yours inherently. It is a gift given to you by God. It is a responsibility that you hold in your hands, and ultimately, as Bonhoeffer would say, you are responsible to God for how you use that power. Okay? And this is the first statement that this document makes. This is section 1, basically saying, when we talk about power, this is what we mean. Right? Does that track? There's a lot more in this. There's 3 more pages of really important stuff, but we're trying to kind of get a basic grasp of what the argument that this document is making. If you want to come back to this, don't hesitate to shout out. Otherwise, I want to go down to section 2, which is what we're going to look at today. And again, they could format this so much better.
Those 2 paragraphs are just,
Oh,
they are worthy of
a lot
more time.
that is exactly what we went over last week. We really dug into that. Okay. Section 2 is entitled God Calls All People to Robust. I like that word. It doesn't get used a lot. Robust civic participation. Before we dig into it, what does that statement mean to you? Or what do you hear? How many of you feel like you have robustly participated in our civics? Well, yeah.
Well, it means active, being in there a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're not talking money at this point, but
Not necessarily. No.
I read in the paper a couple of days ago where some things are down, but all the giving to all the secular things are up.
Sure.
Except religion.
Yeah.
Religion, the giving is down.
And I would imagine it's commensurate with participation as well too. Those are probably parallel lines. Also, do I want to get in? Yeah. Okay. I participated in a webinar this spring, which was put on by Thrive. You guys know the Thrive Ministry of the ELCA. And I was dubious going into it, because I'm dubious of webinars in general, I don't know why. But it was actually an amazing presentation. It was done by a pastor out of the Southeast, a Lutheran pastor from the Southeast of the United States. I can't remember his name offhand. He was just talking about essentially how churches need to evolve regarding their finances going forward. And one of the big points that he made was increasing membership in the 21st century does not mean increasing giving. So if you have a giving unit, that's how we used to refer to families in church, a giving unit that leaves down as whatever, okay? That was giving X percentage of the budget, let's say 5% of the budget. You will need to recruit 5 times more giving units to replace that percentage loss. What that means in plain speak is that people give less in the modern era. And one of the things that he was very careful to articulate is you do not guilt people about that. This is reality, right? As much as you would love for that to be a different reality, this is just the way the world is. And you can think of reasons for that. Again, whether you participate in church, there's distrust of churches, whether they use your money responsibly, which is unfortunately very tragic, especially considering that the ministries of ELCA are some of the most efficient uses of your dollars in doing good in the world. Many of them have 0 overhead costs and are essentially 99% efficiency in where the money comes from to where it goes. It's a different brand. But this is the way the world works. And so he was advocating, don't expect to replace your giving and your income just through giving or by growing your church. That's important, but that is not necessarily going to make your church financially successful. As to what he advocated otherwise, we'll get into that this fall, but it was facilitating other streams of income for the congregation, using the resources of the congregation. Sorry, I got off on a tangent, but you're exactly right. So what does civic participation look like? What are the different ways that we participate? Mike?
Jesse, when I first started working and got into management, it was a requirement of our company that you be involved in some civic organizations.
And which one did you participate in?
Well, I was in about 2 or 3. I was like,
Yeah.
United Way.
United Way, that's what I almost said.
Lions Club.
Yeah.
Different things like that. So.
You played golf too, right?
Periodically, yeah.
Yeah,
Civic participation.
civic participation.
Yeah.
But it was, it was like, okay, you're in management, but then you need, not only for the company, but just to be involved in the community.
Yeah.
To see what's going on and also what, you might impart a viewpoint.
Why do you think the company mandated that kind of stuff?
Well, it was advantageous because you could impart information from the company to a group of other leaders.
Sure.
So they have a better understanding at times, not all the time, but
They saw it as mutually beneficial.
yes.
Yeah.
But I viewed it as very beneficial for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have experiences like that? I've never had that experience. No job. This one being different. From my previous employment did not mandate civic participation anyway. In fact, I think in a lot of ways a lot of our modern corporations would discourage. Sorry, I mean cynical. Wayne. And then
We're
Paul.
working in the defense contracting industry. Years ago, we were told how to vote.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
There was an expectation.
By your management.
Unions. Oh,
And in United Way, we were expected to give money.
Ah, interesting.
And I don't like being told what to do.
I resonate with that, Wayne.
And they said, well, just donate $1. I said, that's not the point.
Yeah. The amount is not the issue. Paul, you can.
Oh, I was just gonna say, only once did, a member of my congregation in Maxburg wanted me to be part of the Lions Club with him. And I thought, first he wanted me to talk to the Lions Club, and
Yeah.
he wanted me to be a member of the Lions Club. And I just didn't, it wasn't something, a calling that I could bite into.
Yeah.
Right? And yet I understood what he was trying to do, which is to say, hey, this is where you learn what's going on in Canada. This is where you get the feel of things week by week by week, And I just, it was like, oh, another committee. I don't think so. but he was right about that part, that you get outside your silo as a pastor doing so.
Yeah. Takes you outside of your.
Interesting too. I didn't see any other pastors there,
Hey,
which is weird.
you were the only one that got sucked into.
Because it was a kind of town where you would have previously seen some pastors in those kind of groups.
Yeah.
But I think you need a forum like that where you're just one of the guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm relearning that, being one of the guys.
And it is civic.
It is civic, yeah.
And that's when I also realized they're declining as the church is declining.
Yeah.
So
Participation in institutions in general.
declining.
Yeah. What are other ways that we participate in civic life? So volunteering, taxation, I put that down because Scott brought up giving money. What else?
Staying informed.
Okay, that's good.
I tried.
You are.
Discern which is not true.
Harder as the news gets.
Yeah.
But staying informed for what purpose?
Pardon?
Staying informed for what purpose? I'm sorry, I'm just putting a leading question up there.
Well, partly so you know how to vote.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you have to understand, we all live in, a
Yes.
learn much more about what's available to the rest of society.
And this is one of the challenges with our model of government, right, is when this whole democracy idea was brought up, the voters that the founders imagined were wealthy men, wealthy white men, who were informed by nature of the fact that they were wealthy white men. And obviously that there's something fundamentally wrong with that, right? But this is one of the challenges that faces every participant in the modern era, is what and how, right? So it's just absolutely insane that some 400, well less than 400, but 300 odd million Americans are expected to vote for a presidential candidate. Just insane, absolutely insane, considering that, you know, we are made up of 50 states, and even within the state of Oregon, the diversity of demographics across the state are different. You know, Portland compared to Estacada, compared to, you know, the Grand Ronde Reservation, even though their song system, but you know, you get what I'm saying here. And the idea that all of us are pooling our voices together in a collective voice is totally crazy to think about. And how are we supposed to be informed, right? Where are we supposed to get, unfortunately, the government cut the only source of public information that was previously available to us, but that's a different topic. But how are we supposed to stay informed, especially considering the way that media tailors information to what we want to hear? This is one of the major challenges that are confronting us right now. You know, and at some point, if you can't be informed, what do you do with your voice? Andrea?
And then discerning which sources are correct.
Yeah.
You can't take all your information
Yeah.
from the next door, because that's just
No.
bonkers. But how do you find out what's going on? And with the demise of the newspapers and
Yeah.
You need to look at dark journalism.
Yeah. Yeah. Journalism is a civic participation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike?
Well, one of the things with civic participation is that if you live in a small town of 20,000 or less, everybody's involved.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
as communities get larger, more of
It
it's
distills civic responsibility.
it's our way to go, well, there's plenty of other people.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of things. So, you know, being in town I lived in a town of 4,500 up to 7,000, up to 30,000, and now Portland. But vast difference in how some information is disseminated.
Wholeheartedly. And it's so much easier in a small community as well, too. Also, it's a lot easier to sniff out a lie in a small community because you know the context and you know the facts by and large, right? It's harder the bigger something gets. And you can watch this happen in churches, right? A church of 30 to 50, everybody's doing something, or otherwise that church is dying, you know? You get over 100, 150 and onwards, and suddenly you get that same mindset. Oh, there's somebody else that will take care of it, right? By and large, a lot of times there is, but you lose that sense of participation in the overall community.
Well, in the United States, the east and west coast is a population base.
Yeah.
Is what, was it 90% or something like that?
Yeah.
Constitutes the east and west coast,
Yeah.
everything else is in between. So.
Yeah, Montana, that's what's in between. Len and I play a game called Travel, Trable, and it's Wordle, but you're given, there's both a global version and a US version. You're given one country and another country, and you have to figure out how to get to the other country by naming the countries that are in between it. It's great. It's a fantastic way to learn geography. And so we do both that one and we do the United States one. And I'm not allowed to participate in the US one anymore. I have to watch her do it. Because I've given wrong answers a couple of times. Once I get east of Colorado, south of Illinois, and west of Georgia, I have no idea what's going on there. My default answer is like Arkansas, right? Arkansas is big, it's going to be there somewhere. But yeah, it's fascinating because if you know that, the Los Angeles basin has more people in it than the majority of European countries. It's absolutely insane to think about. France has 66 million people. The Los Angeles basin has 50-something million. It's absolutely insane.
The island of Java has more people than Russia.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Java's pretty densely,
It's a very, very dense process.
yeah.
Can you repeat that? That sounded like three important
The island of Java has more people than Russia.
Yeah. This is the stuff I nerd out on.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't California like the fourth largest
Economy in the world, yes, yeah.
Right.
All these things really alter the picture of our modern politics. And if you want to know why we have so much craziness going on, a lot of it just has to do with how the reality of the world has changed our country versus how it was imagined in the first place, you know, and how we're supposed to adapt to those changes. And unfortunately, you know, one of the prevailing emphases is we don't adapt, we just go back to the way it used to be, which you can't, it's Pandora, man, you can't put it back up. What are other ways that we participate in civics?
Well, I don't know if this really counts as civic participation, but just going to events in your community.
Yeah.
Paul and I went to what was called Milwaukie Fest,
Yeah.
and we were like impressed by everything that was going on.
What Scott was doing.
Yeah, what Scott was doing, we were impressed with what Scott was doing.
Yeah.
And it just gave us more of a feel for the whole community, just to see so many people out there.
Anybody know any Norse history?
Anyone history?
Norse Viking history? Every year they would have an all thing. A thing is literally what it's called. It's THING. And it was simultaneously event and civic participation. So all the people would get together and they would hash out whatever issues they had. They would organize Viking parties, you know. They would trade cattle, they would drink mead, you know. That was how, and this is kind of the foundation for how civic participation works, isn't it? So we get everybody together, we talk about stuff, we do stuff, and then we go back to our lives. It's only in the modern era that this part is absent from the other part, right? Voting, in Oregon, you know, I fill out my ballot, I take the drop off with it, which I'm not lamenting at all, by the way. Voting in Oregon is one of the best voting experiences I've ever had, and I wish the whole country did the way we do it. I am more confident in the security of my vote than I was when I had to go into a little box with curtains around it, plugging my numbers into some stupid machine.
And waiting in line.
And waiting in line for no reason whatsoever. For no reason.
Voters, we have
Well, in the voters pamphlet, there's another thing. You know, you talk about staying informed.
Right.
I appreciate so much our Oregon voters pamphlets.
Right.
I don't have to go onto websites and try and parse candidacy, you know, language to figure out who's my favorite, who's my best option. I mean, granted, these are all statements that are submitted by the candidates themselves, but it's all there in one place that I can flip through. Good Lord.
And they got both sides.
And they have both sides.
Yeah.
I love reading the dissenting voices for things that are majority going to pass. That is some of my popcorn eating stuff.
So, my daughter-in-law misses certain things about Oregon, like rain, which I don't agree with, but she misses the voters' pamphlet. That's what the
Topic for this. Does anybody, it's just a quick one, does anybody know why Oregon is like this? Why do we have good voters pamphlets and mail-in ballots? What brought us here?
We had people participating that were making sure
Maybe,
it was done right.
yeah, maybe. I wonder too if it has to do with the geography of Oregon as well, where you've got population centered in one spot, and just having people drive from Burns, or, you know, trying to find voting. I wonder if that had something to do with it. I don't know. I'm just making this up. I have no idea.
Well, one was the Oregon League of Women Voters was very active in getting a lot of the voters pamphlet put together.
What year did they go to mail-in ballots?
Oh.
Well, we came, since we,
That was the 80s,
No, I think it
late
was,
80s, early 90s.
I think it was
90s, it's in the 90s,
90s.
when we were first here, there was,
yeah, we went to poll when I first moved to Milwaukee.
we found out we weren't
Early
registered.
90s.
But I'm guessing it was for the intent of increasing voter participation, I assume. No.
Yeah, basically the idea was, you know, why do you have to wait for 10 hours to get a vote? And then, you know,
Why?
for whatever reason, you can't get there, so you have the absentee ballot anyway, so why just use that as the real method rather than the
Yeah.
default method? And
If it works for some people, why can't it work for all people?
exactly, and they're also at lower costs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're saving money.
And I actually think it's more responsible voting because you can have it, your voters pamphlet right there in
And
front
you
of
can
you.
think about it at
And
home.
you can think about it, and you can talk to
Yeah.
somebody.
I fill out 75% of my ballot right off the bat.
Right.
50 to 75, and then I can mow
The
on.
one judge, you mean?
Yeah, where there's only one choice, that's the easy part. I feel so smart filling out the judge ballots.
There's no hanging chast.
No, yeah.
Because it's real, it's right there. You can
Whoever
look at
thought punch cards are the best option.
I don't think everybody could get there too.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Well,
Something's
yeah,
wrong, and you just
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah, amen.
right. I mean, my biggest thing before they went to the mail-in was, one, if it's such an important thing, why isn't it a quote day off?
Yeah, holiday.
Two, why isn't it for the full 24 hours rather than for a very short
Short window of business hours.
Because you're only looking at a select group of people who can make that window.
What about people that
Automatically excluding a lot of people who can't.
work union shift?
Right.
You know.
Yep.
Cynthia?
The last time I went to vote in my precinct, it had moved and I didn't go it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And they were constantly changing.
yeah.
Yep.
And who knows the precinct number to look at all this?
Yeah.
Oh, because it was several precincts combined.
And this is all before the internet too. Can you imagine?
It wasn't easy.
I mean,
Right.
now I can Google something and usually find the answer, whether it's correct or not.
Well, and in some parts of the country, weather makes a difference about whether you can get to.
Huge.
100%. In Minnesota, going to vote on days where it was blizzarding,
Yeah.
just awful.
November elections in Michigan are dicey, right? Because that's when our first big one usually hits. Ruby?
Yes, if you have questions about how the pamphlet counting or whatever it is, Tracy's done that for years.
Oh!
Yeah, she did a little work.
You are a counter.
Thanks, Ruby.
Hey Tracy, I'll give you the mic, tell us about it.
But polling workers
Yeah.
used to be a big way to participate, and to still, obviously, in most of the United States is. But who's going to do that? And who's even going to monitor or whatever? But that was a really big. A jury duty is really
Yeah.
an actually very critical piece that we, I think, try to get out of more than do.
Or just boot it out when we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse, what about just when I volunteer for something and just feel, volunteering there, but you feel good about doing something that God wants you to do?
That was my sermon last week, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yes. No, I'm 100% with you. I cannot stress enough just how good this is for everybody. Volunteering. I mean, and you know, one of the things that I don't know, lament is a strong word. One of the things I wish that we emphasize more in the U.S. or have more avenues for is things like Peace Corps and ways that you can do your civic duty by not necessarily carrying a gun if you don't want to do that. You know. But we're held at least in similar, if not equal esteem. Yeah.
But if we're not doing something for somebody else, what is there to do? Everything we do.
Listen to my sermon this morning. I'm not being sorry. That is the operative question. That what you are articulating is a dividing line. If you aren't doing something for something else, what do you do? And the answer is accumulate is what you do. Yeah. Mike?
Andrea and Brenda volunteer at the Clackamas Service Center, and there's more
Oh, my gosh.
information and stories that come out of that. But
It's,
what an experience. Yeah.
no, go ahead, Mike, you tell.
No, that's fine.
No, I don't want to, you tell Brenda.
No, it's just, I'm proud of both people, and it's just, more of that needs to happen.
You learn. Yeah, you learn about people.
Frankie goes every week, I only go every other week. Well, it just gives you a whole insight into a different population that I would never rub elbows with otherwise, and
Yeah.
it's opening my eyes.
Well, we went on vacation in Montana for about 10 days, but, so we would talk to, like, my brother and his wife, and Brenda's sister and her husband. We ended up with a whole back seat full of clothes that they donated.
Yeah.
Which we need, especially men's clothes.
Yeah.
Men don't, I think you keep your clothes too long, so they're too worn out by the time
Yeah,
you.
we do. I've got a whole closet of t-shirts that testify
Oh,
to
we
that.
would love
I've worked with a lot of houseless people, and civic participation is really tough for them because there's no
Yeah.
place to send their ballot to.
Yeah.
And they're particularly uninformed to a large extent
Yeah.
because they're so busy surviving.
Yeah.
So when people go, well, why don't they just, there's a
Why don't
lot
they
of
just-
reasons
why
why
don't
they
they
don't
just-
just,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And then, if they wanted to do something where they rubbed elbows with somebody else, they may not be clean enough.
Yeah.
They may not have the clothing or
Yeah.
the dental hygiene there's so many ways that they're disenfranchised from what is really much more accessible to most of us in this room.
Yeah.
That we could probably think about that when we think about, oh, do I have time for this, or do I want to jump into that volunteer?
Does it fit into my busy
Yeah.
schedule?
Yeah.
Let me put something out there quick
That's fine.
and ask a question. Does this one fit too?
Absolutely.
Government employment? Yeah. It's one of the big topics that is addressed in this one is the increasing disparaging way that government employees are represented. Lazy, inept, inefficient, you know. Having grown up with a dad and a mom who worked technically, my mom was a school teacher, it's kind of, it was back when my dad was a rural mail carrier for the United States Postal Service. And he was not inept. Many of the middlemen could work, but that's a different question. But you know, these are people who get paid wages that are set by voters, right? Effectively, who's you know, when you talk about lobbying for a pay increase, they don't get to ask for a raise per se. You know, it's all mandated by we the taxpayer. You know, and then on the other hand, my dad who sat in the car 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, basically, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. He really took vacation.
And cold weather.
Cold and all weather, yeah. Wind, rain, sleet, or snow, right? As they say. And I'm not making him a martyr or anything like that, but just to say, these are not necessarily lucrative jobs from the perspective of working in the private sector. Okay, many people who go into government employment, do so because of a sense of civic responsibility, right? And to disparage them is, for me, the ultimate sin in terms of participating in our economy, or participating in our society.
We have a large number of people in the military in the Lutheran Church.
Yes.
So that Lutheran chaplains, for instance, are overrepresented in some sense
Yes.
in the military. But if you come out of a congregation that was primarily military and civil service, I can't imagine what the present environment feels like.
It's got to be a very...
In terms of saying, what is God... I mean, I think those folks really understand that God is being served, or the people of God are being served in their work, but it's not being celebrated, it's not being acknowledged even, or appreciated as the work of the church.
And have any of you ever worked in a scenario with that experience of not being celebrated or acknowledged for the work that you do? How does that feel? Not great, right? Your boss takes all the credit. Good Lord. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll back down to my spot because navigating whatever the heck this is very painful.
And the thing about government employment is a lot of people that have pretty high-level jobs in the government, they can still go to the private sector and make a lot more money.
Yep.
But they choose to be civics.
Civic-minded, yeah.
And then another thing, under that government employment, one of her daughters, Kaya, after she was out of college, she worked for 2 years for AmeriCorps. So you get
That is what I'm trying to think of.
for that, but my goodness, the experience you got were great.
And there are groups like Jesuit volunteers who do incredible work all over the place. Now they've been folded into the AmeriCorps pay structure.
But it's also a Lutheran Volunteer Corps too.
And the LVC is a piece of that too.
I want to read these first couple paragraphs just to give you a sense because we basically talked about what this section is about, just to be clear. I want to read these paragraphs to kind of cement in here. The Lord's Prayer, your will be done on earth as in heaven, which we talked about last week, refers to the entire scope of God's will for creation. Stop me if you have questions about what's being said here, by the way. Yet it certainly includes that aspect of life in society that describes activities and institutions related to public life, from one's neighborhood to national and international affairs. So in other words, when we say, your will be done on earth as in heaven, we're understanding that applies to the whole scope of human institution. Right? Okay. Participation in civic life comes in many shapes and sizes. A few examples include coaching soccer at a community center, volunteering, attending parent-teacher association meetings, participating in peaceful demonstrations. We did not include activism as part of that. That's important. Volunteering one's business acumen in a community development initiative, engaging in political activity, running for office. We didn't even miss that one, civic participation, which, that's important. And participating in international sister city programs, which we don't talk about much anymore, unfortunately. Is there a sister city for Portland? Or
It's in Japan.
Well, progression.
what's the one for Gresham?
I'm not gonna remember the name of it, it's in Korea.
Korea.
Sapporo, Japan is.
No, Japan, I'm sorry, not Korea, Japan.
Okay.
Sapporo, our sister city relationship there is one of the oldest in the whole system.
Really?
And we also have Bologna, Italy.
No way. We got some good sister cities. That's pretty cool. I need to do more research as to where that came out of and what that meant in terms of participation.
Linda Seals has been a part of Rosarians, which
Yes.
is I mean,
They have like.
just going
Yeah.
around and participating in the parades of
Yeah.
other cities is actually a link
I
that we don't think of.
I have to confess something. This is going to showcase how ignorant I can be sometimes. You know how long it took me to figure out that they're called the Rosarians specifically because it's about rose bushes? It's like, I was at the Rose Garden and they were talking about the Society of Royal Rosarians and I was like, oh. I don't know what I thought it was about. I thought it was about rosaries.
You thought it was Rosicrucian.
Rosicrucian.
Jesse, you may not be old enough, but no, it's not about Rosie the elephant who was born in Portland.
I'm not smart, super. I'm going to read two more paragraphs. The social fabric of society depends upon prudent, vigorous, or robust, and broad participation in civic life. It's an interesting statement. What does prudent mean?
Pointed.
Dear Prudence, what'd you say, Matt? Or Andy?
Pointed. It's
Pointed, yeah. Prudent, informed, smart.
Wise is one.
Wise, yeah, wise, vigorous, and broad participation. Such participation is a medium through which people deepen relationships, create opportunities, and hold one another accountable for public life. This makes the decline of civic participation in the United States at this time, in community organizations, for example, especially troubling. And here's kind of the statement. Our church affirms the Lutheran teaching that anyone who seeks the community's well-being through civic participation is, knowingly or not, using the capacities God provides. Vocation. There is no single or required way to live this out. The Christian faith celebrates the multitude of ways that God calls people into lives of service and community for the sake of the common good. Again, going back to that concept that we heard way back in the introduction. Community for the sake of the common good. Common good, emphasis. This statement assumes and draws blah, 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 blah. I'm going to skip to the last sentence. It affirms, for example, the need to pray for civic and political leaders, which we do. We, at our Bible study every Tuesday, we pray for President Trump every week. Not sarcastically. Legitimately. The responsibility to vote, the importance of being active in the political sphere, and the need for collective action towards fair and compassionate government. This is profound stuff. And I don't mean profound in novel. This is old stuff. But this is really important stuff. Let's spend the last 5 to 10 minutes talking about this stuff. Whatever you feel inspired to. Paul, I know you have
No,
something.
I was thinking that
I'm gonna get some
the
coffee.
KO used to be like super important in the county here.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was really like running the county at some point.
Kathy, do you want to elaborate on what it was like to run the county? He was involved in Toll County.
Did you hear that?
No.
Oh, I said that you were super important in our county.
Well, thank you, I thought so.
Yeah. But
Everybody else thought so too.
but it wasn't celebrated as this is part of her calling as a Christian to serve the community
Yeah.
as a did you help to set the
was the docket supervisor.
docket, right.
So you basically told 10 guys in dresses what to do all day.
Right, right.
And when she became the docket supervisor, I knew her when she was the judicial assistant for Judge Chuck Sands, who was my favorite judge in Clackamas County, who was just a great guy. And then she became the docket supervisor, and then I had to be nice to her.
That's tough for you, wasn't it?
I worked it out.
But you know what I'm saying, is that, I would think that some people might consider what you were doing as sort of adversarial to them because they were maybe needing to be processed in the court system. And yet,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, right, but sort of like you're the enemy instead of you're the servant.
I was in the way.
Right, but you see, that's what I mean,
You were
is
the
that
way, the
happens,
truth,
I
and the
think.
light.
Maybe. Okay, wow. Okay.
I can tell why you're a lawyer, Rory. That was good. That was a pivot.
Gotta work both sides.
Yeah.
Well, and just lawyering.
Yeah,
And, you know, lawyering, you're supposed to be representing the courts.
yeah.
Wait, what is it called? You're not a servant of the court, but an officer of the court?
An officer of the court,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, and
An
yet,
officer of
As
the
are
court.
most of the employees are
right,
also considered.
right, but the court, to many people, is, well, I hope I never end up there.
Yeah.
Rather than,
When you do end up there, you want to have representation.
Yes.
sure do, because you can't play the game that's going on there.
This is almost verbatim the informational video that I got shown when I got called to jury duty, by the way.
Oh,
You're doing a great job, yeah. Well, and it was interesting because I know these things, but it's really important to hear those things. You know, is that as a generally law-abiding citizen, I don't ever want to be there, both out of, you know, being there because I'm the subject of one of these inquiries, but also, you know, being called to jury duty. But having it emphasized for me that when you need to be there, you're going to want this to be there. You're going to want a jury of your peers, you know, presiding over you.
Right.
And so jury of your peers is really an interesting
Yeah,
concept.
yeah,
Because when I was a JAG officer,
yeah,
you know, everybody would go, you surely don't want to go get a court martial with a jury.
Right.
Except that that's the best jury you possibly could have had. Because those people, most of them were officers, headed by a colonel
yeah,
and fairly senior officers. The defendant, if the defendant, the accused was an enlisted person, you could have enlisted members as a part of the jury, but we generally recommended against that because
Yeah.
those were sergeant majors, and people who were going to hang you by the but that jury was extraordinary because they understood what that oath really meant. And it meant that the prosecution had to prove the accused in a criminal case, which they were all criminal cases,
Yeah.
beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And they meant that.
yeah,
And I was principally a defense counsel most of my time on active duty. And I won some cases that I don't think I could have won in the civil court.
interesting.
Just because the prosecution didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt sufficiently to convince those juries.
Very well informed jury.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a
That's
challenge.
another reason to be well informed. Right?
Yeah, right, because, yeah,
Is it who's on the jury?
yeah. Pat had something and I want to close this to the final
I
question.
mean, there's a million ways to volunteer, and some are very visual,
Yeah,
and some are not visual at all,
no,
but they're equally important
yeah.
because they're serving somebody else.
I think a lot of public sanitation workers. I watched, okay, this is going to, sorry if I gross you a little. We have 2 dogs, right? So you can understand 2 dogs is twice the amount of poop. We can't compost it, or, you know, you're not supposed to. By the way, don't ever put dog poop in your green bin if you have a green bin. So we have to bag it and throw it out. And every other Thursday, some poor sanitation worker has to take our garbage bin and dump it in, you know, he's got a thing that picks it up, but if it doesn't all come out, he has to do it. And I'm always mortified that one of the bags is gonna burst open while this poor guy is trying to do his job. So we're extra careful about double bagging if we need to. And you know what makes good for dog is charcoal bags are great for putting dog poop in because they're thick and can't, and they'll decompose the people. Anyways, yeah, we talk about we put all these different ways of participating in civic life. There are so many volunteer and professional roles that are so kind of under the radar. And this is, I think, also one of the detriments of losing an understanding of civic participation. That statement is we simply don't understand how our country functions, like how it works, and it's actually remarkable how it works. I mean, the fact that I can get on a road in the morning that is maintained by my municipality, I can expect that it's going to be relatively free from potholes, it's going to have traffic lights, which are managed, right? And that people are going to follow those traffic laws because they're enforced by a police system, and that I can drive there and nobody's going to waylay me on the road. Nobody's going to pull me over and rob me for my car or my money, right? When I stop at a red light, I don't have to worry about that. I can cross a bridge, which is either has been or will be upgraded to survive earthquakes. This is just a small slice, and it is absolutely remarkable. Yesterday, if you weren't here for the beginning, I went sailing and we crossed underneath the 205 bridge. You ever seen the 205 bridge from the bottom? No. I felt like a middle-aged peasant or medieval peasant coming up on the Lord's castle, just sitting there going, "How in the heck did we do this?" Right? And yet we take all these things for granted. So I don't, because I don't really drive there. But how many people gripe about being stuck in traffic on that stupid bridge? But it's, I'm not critiquing anybody, but it's just the reality. We are so uninformed and ignorant to how fragile all these systems are that work together to provide the quality of life that we have. And they require our participation, right? It's not a bonus, they require our participation. If we stop participating, we start to fall apart. Not just roads and bridges, but the very mechanisms by which, we can elect people to run budgets to build roads and bridges.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
Sewers are highly underrated.
Oh my goodness. As a former chemical engineer, I can tell you.
Yeah. And the clean water system that we have.
Yes.
Which
is, for Portland is one of the best.
But highly unappreciated by us day by day.
Yeah.
Right? And along with that, all the public health structure that we have.
Yeah.
And all the medical systems that we have are so unbelievably different than what they are. I mean, I don't always look at a disaster like Gaza, but most of the world just doesn't operate this way at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't have nearly what we have, and we just, outside out of mind, pretty much.
We need to wrap up here pretty soon, but that's one of the things that I'm morbidly curious about is how does life continue in Gaza when your hospitals are rubble, all of the things that make up life are rubble, right? When there's no food coming in, there's no food being produced. What is life like? What is a day like in the life of a Gazan citizen? I'm curious. I'm sad, but I'm also very curious. Yeah.
Now, this isn't quite fair, but I heard this one time, I don't know where it came from. But it said, what you get thanked for on earth, you won't get thanked for in heaven, because you already had your reward.
That's good. Morning.
So the question comes to my mind.
Yeah.
What is it about the United States at our founding, as it were, and as our progress, that created the social fabric that created and maintained what we have?
That's a great question. I don't know, and I hesitate to offer.
And I don't know either.
I hesitate to offer a 30-second answer. As a way of closing, I will tell you, I've got a friend who's a historian. Her name's Margot. She teaches at Reed College. She's a professor of early American history. So post-Revolutionary War, before the Civil War. And she just finished her sabbatical, which was a book writing year for her. And she wrote a book on Christian pacifism in the early 19th century. And it's absolutely fascinating because it is coming out of the previous wars, so the War of 1812, and it's going into what will eventually become the Civil War, right? And here is this weird unifying identity amongst Christians, especially in the southeast of the United States, who are advocating for nonviolence. And yet, in the midst of that is this conversation around, should we continue to own people? And a lot of the people both insist that we shouldn't own people, are abolitionists, but also pacifists. And so, here's the situation. And the reason I bring this up, I'm going to read her book once it gets published, is that's America, right? That the idea that you can, knowing our history, that eventually we did have to fight a war to end this great sin that was slavery, and yet there is space for people who both don't want violence and want to end the great sin. And that, I think, is one of the things that continues to be a strength, is that we get to be people of diverse ideas and opinions, and all those things are permissible to be held in tension, right? That there's space for that in our country. And that's one of my great fears, is that as we narrow this definition of who defines an American, that we're leaving less space for those ideas. Anyways, we gotta go to church. Thank you for bringing up a good question. Hold on to that. I think we should talk about that at the beginning of next week. I will be here next week. We'll have our final topic on this, then I'll be gone. We will start Adult Ed, or Education Hour, back up again the second Sunday in September. Well, the first Sunday, because Labor Day is the first this year. Labor Day is on Monday. So the first Sunday of September, we'll start back up again. Topic to be determined. We might talk more about this, or we might enter into something else.
How about just the Bureau of Labor Statistics?